Hi everyone, welcome back to The Rose Garden, your series where ideas take root, essays bloom, and your writing grows stronger every day. I am Mr. Rose, your literary landscaper, here to help your ideas flourish. Today we're going to focus on a really important skill in analytical writing: how to write paragraphs that compare or contrast two texts. With some assessments, you might need to either compare or contrast certain focuses to support your arguments. This vodcast today is aimed at showing you how to compare or contrast through a literary essay. You've probably already done some writing about a single text before, analysing characters, themes, or even language. But now we're taking it one step further. You're going to learn how to put two texts in conversation with each other, looking at how they show similar ideas or how they approach the same concept in different ways. Now, we're not just listing similarities or differences. We're going to be writing detailed, insightful paragraphs using the petal structure. This means we'll still be using P for point, E for evidence and explain, T for technique, A for analysis, and L for link. But for now, we'll be applying this structure across two texts, not just one. You'll learn how to write a strong topic sentence that clearly shows whether you're comparing or contrasting. You'll be able to choose quotes from both texts that support your point. You can also identify techniques that the authors or directors use. And most importantly, you'll dig deep into your analysis to show what these similarities or differences actually mean. We're going to be practicing both comparing, which means showing how texts are similar, and contrasting, showing how they're different. By the end of this video, you should feel more confident writing about how authors shape meaning and how their messages reflect different values, times, or perspectives. So grab your notebook, make sure you've got your texts nearby, and let's jump into the art of comparison and contrasting. As you are aware, you need to build three arguments across your analytical essay. For the purpose of this episode, I'll be focusing on my example body paragraph, which explores the theme of control within Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale and George Orwell's 1984, specifically at, on how control is constructed and maintained through language. You can see on the screen I'm focusing on that second dot point. Both texts show us that language isn't just about communication. It can be used to limit thought, rewrite truth, and reinforce obedience, often without people even realizing it. This makes language one of the most powerful tools of control in dystopian worlds, and that's exactly what I'm going to try and explore here. Before we get started, it's important to understand when and why we need to compare or contrast. We compare and contrast in literature to go beyond just understanding each text on its own. We want to explore how two different authors or creators present similar ideas in different ways, or how they reach similar messages using different techniques. This deepens our understanding of the concept being explored, like control, love, or moral failure, and it helps us think critically about the context, values, and purpose that shape what we read or watch. When we compare, we're looking for the similarities, we're looking for the shared themes, the character experiences, or the techniques that create similar meanings. To compare this, we are looking at how both texts can present that concept. We're finding those similarities, and we need to show how those messages align. On your screen, you can see some examples of sentence starters to help you with comparing. When we contrast, we're looking for differences. This is the different approaches, the different perspectives, or maybe the stylistic choices that reveal something unique about each text. We need to make sure that we notice where each text takes a different approach in that same concept. We need to compare how characters react in opposite ways, or how each context shapes that message differently. And we need to show that although the topic is the same, the technique or the outcome is different. On your screen, once again, you will see some sentence starters to assist you with contrasting. So, why does it matter Well, comparing shows that you're finding patterns and building connections, and contrasting shows that you're thinking critically about how context, purpose, and perspective affects meaning. A strong literary essay will often do both. It will show where the texts agree and where they diverge, helping you make a deeper argument about meaning and message. In your analytical essay, you're expected to do both. A high quality response will show how texts connect and how they diverge. And the better you are at comparing and contrasting, the stronger and more insightful your argument will be. Now that we're clear on why this skill matters, let's jump into exactly how we write it, starting with that petal paragraph that that contrasts how The Handmaid's Tale and 1984 use language to control truth. Let's break down this contrasting paragraph. We have our point, our evidence, and explain, our technique, our analysis, and our link. On the screen, you can see the example. You are welcome to pause your video here and read through that example. But don't worry, because we'll be going through each section individually to really understand how it is constructed. Here is the point from that paragraph. While both The Handmaid's Tale and 1984 show how language is used as a tool of control, they differ in how overtly truth is manipulated and who has access to it. This is a strong point because it names both texts. It clearly states the concept. We know that it's about control. And it introduces a specific focus. We're talking about how control can manipulate truth. So it signals a contrast. Your job when writing your own point is to be specific. Don't just say both texts show control. Tell us how or in what way they do. E is for our evidence and explain. Here's the evidence and explanation for the paragraph. In 1984, the manipulation of truth is aggressive and direct. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. This slogan from the party highlights the constant rewriting of history to suit the regime's needs. In contrast, The Handmaid's Tale conceals truth beneath ritual and religious language, such as the greeting, "Blessed be the fruit," which masks oppression as spiritual devotion. This section is effective because it uses one quote from each text and explains what is happening in the moment of those quotes. And it sets up a clear contrast. When you write this part, you want to pick powerful quotes that connect directly to your point. Then explain the situation around the quote. Don't just drop it in. T is for technique. Here's that technique section. Orwell uses paradox and political propaganda to reveal blatant historical revisionism, while Atwood relies on irony, euphemism, and religious symbolism to subtly expose ideological control. This is great because I've named the exact technique that the writer is using. It matches the techniques to the concept of control, and it highlights the differences between the two texts. Remember, when you do your technique, name that technique, connect it to your idea. Don't just say a technique is used, but tell us what technique is used and why is it used. Up next is our analysis. This should be the longest part, so let's have a read. Orwell's world is one where truth is actively and openly rewritten. The Ministry of Truth literally destroys and alters documents, making lies into facts. The power structure is based on citizens being forced to accept obvious falsehoods, leading to psychological submission. In contrast, Atwood presents a more covert manipulation. Theocratic language turns everyday conversation into a ritual, training women to internalize subservience without realizing it. While 1984 uses brute force to rewrite truth, The Handmaid's Tale achieves compliance through repetition, sanctity, and social conditioning. This contrast reveals differing fears about control, as Orwell warns of totalitarianism backed by surveillance and fear, while Atwood critiques how ideology and tradition can normalize oppression without needing constant force. This is a strong analysis because it explains how the techniques create meaning. It digs into the psychological effects of control rather than just stating about control, and it connects the ideas back to the author's messages and values of their contexts. When you write your analysis, please take your time. This is where you need to show your deep thinking. Ask yourself, why did the author use this technique? What effect does it have? And how does it link to the concept or message that I'm writing about? Let's look at how this paragraph finishes. Thus, both texts explore the control of truth through language, but Orwell presents a regime that openly crushes reality, whereas Atwood portrays a society where language disguises truth, making control feel natural. What is it that makes this link strong? Well, it repeats the big idea of control through truth and language. It summarizes the contrast clearly, and it leaves the reader with a strong understanding of what the message is in that paragraph. Your link should wrap everything up. Don't just repeat your topic sentence. Add a final insight that connects it back to your focus. Next, we're going to walk through a model paragraph that compares how 1984 and The Handmaid's Tale uses language to explore control. Specifically, we're looking at how both texts show that language isn't just about communication, it's actually a powerful tool used by those in power to control people's thoughts and actions. So let's flip the focus. Let's go step by step through the comparison of both texts through the petal structure. You might want to jot some of these down, whether they're sentence starters or ideas as we go. On the screen, you can see the example. Once again, you're welcome to pause it here and read through this example. Don't worry, because we will go through each section individually to really understand how it is constructed. P is for point. Here's how my paragraph begins. In both 1984 and The Handmaid's Tale, language is not just a means of communication. It becomes a weapon used by those in power to limit thought and enforce obedience. This is a really clear topic sentence. It names both texts, it introduces the key idea, language and control, and it tells us that we're looking at the similarity between both. So it's already setting up for that comparison. When you write your own point, start by saying in both texts, or similarly, each text shows, to make it clear that you are comparing. Our next part is our evidence and explain. In 1984, Orwell introduces Newspeak, a language designed to eliminate rebellious thought. Don't you see that the whole aim of Newspeak is to narrow the range of thought? Similarly, in The Handmaid's Tale, Offred reflects on the impact of the controlled language. Nolite te bastards carborundium, a fake Latin phrase passed between handmaids, becomes a rare moment of private rebellion. Sorry about that. What's great here is that we're seeing a clear quote from each text, and there's a little explanation with each one so that the reader knows what's going on. We're not just throwing in quotes and moving on, we're connecting them to the idea of control. Always explain what the quote means, especially if it's not super obvious. And try to choose quotes that really show your concept in action. Our technique is introduced here. We say both authors use invented or adapted language and internal monologue to highlight how individuals resist or succumb to linguistic control. This sentence does two things really well. It names the techniques, invented language and internal monologue, and it shows what the techniques do, how they help us see resistance or control. So don't just name your technique, link it to the meaning. Ask yourself, why did the author use this and what effect does it have on the reader? Now, once again, we are at the most important part, the analysis. So listen carefully. Newspeak reduces vocabulary until independent thinking becomes impossible. If there are no words for freedom or rebellion, those ideas cannot be expressed or even imagined. Likewise, in Gilead, phrases like under his eye and blessed be the fruit create an illusion of unity while actually enforcing strict roles. In both texts, language is shaped not to communicate, but to control, limit, and suppress. However, both also show that language can be reclaimed. Offred's use of the forbidden words and Winston's secret diary show that language can preserve identity, even under immense pressure. The similarity lies in the power of the language to both crush and preserve individual thought, depending on who wields it. Okay, this is where the magic happens. This is deep layered thinking. It's not just saying language is used for control, it's explaining how the control works, why the authors use it, and even impacts on characters and the reader. It also brings in some of that context, what these techniques reveal about power, identity, and resistance. Your goal in the analysis section is to go beyond surface level ideas. This should be the longest part of your paragraph. Think critically about what it tells us about the world of the text, and even our own. So let's wrap it up. Through their use of restricted language, both 1984 and The Handmaid's Tale show how controlling words is central to controlling people, turning language into the most powerful tool of domination. This link sums up the key idea really smoothly. It brings us back to the big concept of control and reminds us that language isn't neutral in these texts. It's a weapon. So, for your link, you can either summarize what the paragraph showed or connect it to your next idea. Just make sure you finish your paragraph with a purpose. I want to go through some final tips so you are aware each of those sections. For our points, you need to start with a clear point. If you are comparing, use sentence starters like in both texts or similarly each author to really show that there's a connection. Make sure your point clearly states the concept that you're analyzing. If you are contrasting, use sentence starters like while X shows this, Y demonstrates this. Or unlike in blank, to highlight differences. Focus your point on what's different in the way that each text presents the same concept. When you are looking at your evidence and explaining, choose balanced evidence and explain. When you're comparing, choose a strong quote from each text that shows how the concept is presented similarly. Briefly explain the context around each quote so that the reader understands what is happening. If you're contrasting, choose two quotes that show different approaches to the one concept. Make sure you explain how each quote reflects a different perspective, tone, or method. A bonus tip down the bottom: use comparative language like similarly or in contrast, or on the other hand, to keep comparison or contrast clear. When you are looking at the technique, you need to name the techniques that link to the concept. Use accurate terms. For example, symbolism, irony, repetition, tone, camera angle, or lighting to describe how the author or director delivers meaning. Normally, these are referred to as literary devices. If you're comparing, you need to show that both authors or directors use similar techniques. And if you're contrasting, point out that each author uses different techniques to explore the same concept. For example, Orwell uses propaganda, while Atwood uses religious language. In your analysis, you need to make sure this is the longest part. This is where you dig into why the author has used the technique, what it reveals about the character or world, how it connects to the concept, and what message or context it reflects. If you are comparing, focus on how both texts explore similar ideas or values through different examples. Highlight any shared message or warning. If you are contrasting, explore how each author's approach reflects different values, perspectives, or fears, and link that analysis to maybe some historical or cultural context where appropriate. And lastly, our link. End with a purposeful link. If you're comparing, reinforce the similarity and how both texts send a similar message about the concept. For example, this shows that in both texts, language is central to the way control is maintained. If you're contrasting, highlight the key difference about what it tells us about the author's different intentions or contexts. For example, this contrast reveals how each text critiques control in unique ways through fear in Orwell's world and through ideology in Atwood's. So, your final tip: always keep your concept in focus, whether it is control, truth, identity, gender, morality. Make sure you keep that concept clear. Treat both texts equally. Don't write a lot about one and very little about the other. You want to make sure it is well balanced. Use linking language throughout your paragraph to signal whether you're comparing or contrasting. Choose meaningful quotes. Don't just pick any quote. Pick ones that help you prove something important. And lastly, think deeply. What is the author or director trying to say about society, power, or human behavior? I hope that this helps you whether you are comparing or contrasting your topics for your literary essay. And remember, the first time you write this, it's not going to look great. Just keep workshopping it and building, building, building. Thank you. Bye.